The great galactic hall was so large that a whole city could fit inside it. Thousands of seats rose in high circles. Lights hung like stars in the ceiling. Every seat was full. Alien eyes of many colors were watching one single spot at the center of the hall. At that center stood one human, alone, in chains. The chains were heavy, and they were made for dangerous beasts, not for people. But the human stood straight. He did not bow. He did not cry. He did not beg. His face was calm, like deep water with no waves. His name was not spoken. To the galaxy, he was simply the Deathworlder. Aliens whispered to each other in fear. Some had soft skin, some had scales, some had feathers, and some floated in metal shells. Their voices filled the air like buzzing wind. They did not understand humans. They only understood stories about Earth, and every story sounded like a warning. They had heard of fire, storms, killing cold, burning heat, and animals that hunted. Even at night, they had heard that humans learned to smile in the middle of danger. To them, humans were not just people. They were a rumor that walked. At the far end of the hall sat the Galactic Council. They wore bright robes and shining badges. In front of them stood the alien commander who had captured the human. His uniform was sharp. His eyes were proud and cruel. He believed the hall belonged to him. He believed the galaxy belonged to him. And he believed the human at the center was nothing. The trial was being shown live across the galaxy. Billions of screens were watching. Children, soldiers, traitors, kings, and thieves all were waiting to see what would happen to the human from the death world. The commander liked that. He liked the cameras. He liked the power. The human looked up at the council and then at the commander. He said nothing. He did not move. He only breathed slowly. His eyes were quiet, but they were not weak. They were like eyes that had seen storms and had not broken. The commander began to speak. His voice was loud and angry. He called humans wild animals. He said Earth was a mistake of nature. He said humans were too dangerous to exist in the galaxy. Many aliens nodded. Some sat very still, as if the word human itself made them cold. The commander walked closer to the chained man. He walked in slow steps, enjoying every second. He wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be broken. He wanted to show that even a Deathworlder would bow if hit hard enough. He wanted to turn fear into laughter. Still, the human stayed silent. The commander stopped right in front of him. They were so close that the human could feel the commander's breath on his face. The hall was silent. No one even dared to cough. Across the galaxy, people leaned toward their screens. The commander raised his hand. For one short moment, their eyes met. The commander saw no hate there, no fear either, just calm. That calm made him angry. He slapped the human across the face. Sound of the slap echoed through the hall like thunder in a canyon. The force of the slap made the human's head turn a little to the side, but his body did not move. The commander smiled. He thought he had won. He thought the show was finished. 5 seconds passed. In those 5 seconds, no one spoke. No one breathed. Every camera stayed focused. Every mind tried to understand what it was seeing. The human slowly turned his head back. His chains hung loose in his hands. His eyes were no longer quiet. They were very, very old, like mountains that had seen many wars. Something happened. No one saw his hands move. No one saw his feet step. There was no blast, no laser, no bright light. There was only a change, sudden and final. One moment, the commander stood proud. The next moment, he was falling, as if the floor itself had rejected him. The hall exploded. With screams and shouts, chairs shook, guards froze. The council stared with open mouths. Across the galaxy, people stood up from their seats in shock. No one had words. No one had answers. The human stood very still, as if nothing strange had happened at all. His voice, when he finally spoke, was soft and calm. Like before, "Do not strike my people again." he said. And in that moment, the galaxy understood a new truth. A Deathworlder does not need to shout. He does not need to threaten. He only needs 5 seconds. Every world in the galaxy talked about the same thing. Space stations, farms on moons, shining cities under glass domes, dark mining colonies near black holes. Everywhere, beings gathered around screens and replayed the same 5 seconds again and again. They slowed the clip, paused it, zoomed it, argued about it. But no matter how much they watched, they never saw the human move. It was like a mystery. Wrapped in silence, scientists from gentle worlds shook their heads in confusion. Military officers spoke in low voices, pretending they were calm, but their hands shook. Traders whispered in crowded markets. Even pirates in deep space watched in fear and did not laugh. Children asked their parents, "What is a Deathworlder?" Parents did not know how to answer. In the galactic hall, alarms blared. Guards rushed forward, then stopped halfway. None of them wanted to be the next one to step too close. The human did not run. He did not try to escape. He simply stood there, as if chains or alarms did not matter to him at all. He looked at the faded crowd like someone who had already measured every danger in the room and found it small. He was not angry. That frightened them most. The council whispered among themselves. They used secret channels, private signals, hidden languages. But the human did not need to hear their words. He understood their fear by their eyes alone. He had seen that same fear before on Earth, in storms, in battles, in wild animals caught between fight and flight. Fear looked the same in every species, near. The back of the hall, an old alien scholar sat very still. His skin was wrinkled like folded paper. He had studied many worlds in his long life. He had read about Deathworlds in dusty records that others ignored. He had once written a report warning the council not to provoke humans. The council had laughed then. No one laughed now. He whispered softly, more to himself than to others. They train with pain. They grow with danger. They breathe hardship. Since birth. No one heard him, but the words hung in the air anyway, like truth waiting to be noticed. The human lifted his wrists. The broken chains clinked weakly. They had been built to hold monsters. They had not been built to hold him. The guards looked at one another, each silently wishing someone else would go first. Their armor suddenly felt thin. Their weapons suddenly felt too light. The human did something strange. He closed his eyes. He did not attack. He did not threaten. He simply stood there with closed eyes, as if listening for something beyond sound. Memories rose inside him like waves. He remembered the red dust of Mars training camps, the burning cold of Earth's mountain snow, the taste of smoke in ruined cities after war. He remembered people he loved and people he had lost. He remembered laughing around small fires, even when everything hurt. He remembered being told again and again, humans survive. It was not bragging. It was instruction. When he opened his eyes again, they were calm once more. A council member finally found his voice. It was thin and shaking. "Explain," he said. "What did you do?" The human looked at him and answered in simple words. "I reacted." The hall did not understand. They waited for more. They wanted secrets, hidden weapons, magic, impossible science. The human gave them none of that. He only said, "When you live on a world that always tries to kill you, you learn to move before you think." The old scholar's hands trembled. That was the answer he had feared. Across the galaxy, experts argued. Some said humans must hide advanced technology in their bodies. Some said they bent time. Some said it was a trick of cameras. But one quiet voice after another began to agree with a different and more frightening idea. Maybe humans really were just like that. A soft alien medic in the hall looked at the human and felt something unexpected. Not just fear, respect, because she saw the tired lines on his face. She saw the weight he carried. He did not look like a monster. He looked like someone who had walked too far and seen too much, yet still stood straight. The council tried to regain control. They spoke of laws, punishments, balance, order. Their words sounded small now, like paper walls in a storm. The human did not argue with them. He did not ask for mercy. He simply said, "I will leave. You will let me." Silence followed. They all knew he was right. The guard stepped back without being told. A door opened, slow and wide. No one ordered it. No one admitted pressing the control. Still, it opened. The human began to walk toward it, each step steady, each step measured. No chains dragged. No alarms mattered. Every camera in the galaxy stayed on him. He did not wave. He did not smile. But every being who watched felt the same chill thought move through their mind. If this was a single human, standing alone, what was the whole of Earth like? The human paused at the wide door for one last moment and looked back. Over the hall, not in hate, but in quiet warning. His eyes said what his mouth did not need to say. Do not test Deathworlders. Then he walked out, and a new legend began to grow, word by word, world by world, carried not by ships, not by weapons, but by fear and by awe. Far away from the galactic hall, on silent military bases and hidden war rooms, other eyes had also been watching the trial. They were not shocked like the rest of the galaxy. They were angry. They were afraid too, but their fear wore armor and medals. These were the commander's allies. These were the ones who had helped him plan everything. The trial had not been about justice. It had not been about peace. It had been a stage, built very carefully. The plan was simple. Bring one human, break him in front of every camera, and prove to the galaxy that Deathworlders were not special. If humans looked weak, then fear of Earth would fade. If fear faded, control belonged to them. The commander had loved that plan. He had loved it until 5 seconds. Changed everything. Now his allies watched replays in dark rooms, and none of them spoke loudly anymore. In one of these rooms sat a small group of high-ranking officers from different species. They stared at the frozen image of the human's calm face after the incident. The room lights were low. Only screens glowed, painting the officers in cold colors. One of them broke the silence. This was not supposed to happen. Another replied in a low voice, "You slapped a Deathworlder in front of the galaxy. What did you expect to happen?" A third officer tapped his claws on the table. "We expected fear from the human. Not," he stopped, unable to finish the sentence. He didn't want to say the words. "Not from us." They rewound the video again. They watched it again. Still nothing. No visible movement. No weapon. Just 5 seconds and a result nobody could explain. One officer leaned back and whispered. He did not even look angry. That was the part none of them could forget. Not rage. Not shouting. Just quiet action and quiet eyes. As if humans did not need emotion to be dangerous. As if danger was simply part of being human. Meanwhile, back on Earth's distant blue world, signals were also traveling. Human leaders, soldiers, scientists, and even simple farmers saw what happened. On every continent, screens lit up. People stopped what they were doing. Silence spread through busy cities and small villages alike. Some humans laughed softly, shaking their heads like they had seen this before. Some whispered, "They should not have touched him." No one celebrated loudly. Humans did not see glory in it. They saw a warning. Parents held their children closer. Old veterans looked out at the horizon with knowing eyes. Explorers on distant human colonies stood a little straighter. Space miners in lonely belts smiled a tired smile. The message was clear without being spoken. The galaxy finally understood a piece of what Earth created. But Part 3 was not only about reactions. It was also about secrets, because the commander who had fallen was not just proud. He had been careful. Long before the trial, he had sent spies to study humans, not just their strength. their hearts, their fears, their limits. What he found had frightened him more than their muscles or speed. He learned that humans helped even when there was no reward. They saved strangers. They formed bonds across species. They made friends out of enemies. They healed as fiercely as they fought. That made them dangerous in a different way because loyalty made them unstoppable. The commander had made one final note in his private log. Do not make a human calm. A calm human is thinking. A thinking human is planning. A planning human will win. None of his allies wanted to read that note now. But it was there. In the galactic hall. The old scholar who had whispered earlier now met with young students who were trembling with questions. Teacher, one asked, how do Deathworlders become like this? The old scholar looked tired. Their world never forgave weakness, he said softly. So they learned not to be weak, not in body, not in mind, not in spirit. Another student asked in fear, will they destroy us? The old scholar shook his head. Not if we do. Not try to own them. Not if we do not try to break them. They are not born to destroy. They are born to survive. Do not force them to prove it. Outside, ships moved through space like shining insects. Rumors spread faster than light. Some leaders said, we must never anger Earth again. Others said, we must strike before humans grow stronger. Fear split the galaxy in two. And in the middle of that fear walked the human from the trial. He did not run. He did not hide. He moved through a long metal corridor of the galactic hall, escorted by no one, stopped by no one. Walls scanned him. Doors opened for him, not by command but by silent decision. No guard dared lift a hand. As he walked, he thought of water on rock, drop by drop, patient, unyielding. Humans were like that water, slow sometimes, quiet sometimes, but they always shaped the world around them. He spoke only one sentence into the silent air, not to anyone, but to everyone. Next time, we will not come alone. Somewhere deep in space, that promise began to echo. Asterisk across the galaxy, every research lab burned with light. No one wanted sleep. No one could rest. The question was too loud. What really happened in those 5 seconds? Whole teams of experts stared at floating screens filled with numbers, slow-motion images, shadows, and blurred frames. They tried every filter. They used every tool. They measured every pixel. Still, the answer slipped away like smoke between fingers. One young analyst with 4 eyes and shaking hands whispered, there is nothing. He just exists in one frame, and then the situation changes in the next. That thought alone was terrifying. Something happened they could not see, and what they could not see, they could not control. Some blamed the cameras. Some blamed interference. Some said it must be human secret technology. But an older scientist, quiet and serious, finally said, the words no one wanted to hear, maybe nothing is wrong with the cameras. Maybe something is different about humans. Silence followed. A heavy silence. He tapped the image of the human's calm face. They come from a world where everything tries to kill them. Their bodies learn to move faster than fear. Their minds learn to choose in less than a breath. Their instincts finish the math before we start counting. He looked around the room. He did not plan for 5 seconds. His whole life trained those 5 seconds. Meanwhile, in another part of the galaxy, a council of philosophers met, not soldiers, not scientists. They were thinkers who studied courage, pain, and meaning. They did not ask how the human did it. They asked why. They watched the video too. But they focused on one detail others ignored, the human's expression. No anger, no joy, no pride. Just a decision, made without noise. One philosopher said, he was not trying to rule us. He was not trying to impress us. He was protecting a line. Another asked softly, what line? The first replied, the line that says, do not hurt my people. And suddenly the room understood. Humans were dangerous not because they loved violence, but because they loved someone more than fear. Back in the Galactic Hall, cleanup crews worked in silence. The giant space felt different now, as if even the walls remembered what had happened. Workers avoided the center platform without meaning to. They walked around it, like animals walking around sacred ground. The old scholar returned there alone. He moved slowly, leaning on his staff. He looked at the platform and closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw history rewriting itself. He had taught for centuries that the galaxy's strongest power was technology. Now he was no longer sure. There was another power. Endurance. He spoke to the empty hall. We built soft lives, soft cities, soft hearts. We forgot that strength is born in places where comfort cannot live. He thought of Earth, of endless storms and endless trying. He gave a small, sad smile. We called them Deathworlders. We should have called them survivors. At the same time, secret messages flew between powerful leaders. Their words were cold. We must learn their limits. We must learn their weaknesses. We must prepare. Some even said, we must own them before they own the stars. But a few brave leaders sent different messages. Make peace with Earth. Invite them, do not chain them. Stand beside them, not above them. The galaxy was dividing, line by line, thought by thought. And where was the human now? He was on a small shuttle leaving the station. The ship was simple, with scratched walls and old seats. He liked it that way. He did not need gold or banners. He sat by the window and watched stars drift like quiet snow across the dark. He touched his cheek where the slap had landed earlier. The mark was already fading. Humans healed fast. What did not fade was the memory, not of the slap, but of the hall full of fearful eyes. He did not want the galaxy to kneel. He only wanted it to stop thinking chains were the language of peace. A soft voice came from the shuttle's small computer. Destination? It asked. He answered, home. The word home meant many things to him. Earth with its blue oceans and green forests. Cities filled with noise and laughter. Harsh deserts and bitter winters. Friends, family, strangers who would still help each other on the worst day. Home was danger and love in the same breath. As the shuttle moved into faster-than-light travel, he closed his eyes again. He knew the galaxy was watching. He knew plans were forming. He knew fear could turn into hatred if not guided into respect. He whispered into the dark, do not make us your enemy. In quiet star systems, satellites kept replaying 5 seconds. That changed everything. No battle fleets, no invasions, no great speeches, just one truth. The most frightening thing in the galaxy was not a weapon. It was a calm human who had decided enough was enough. Rumors moved faster than ships. Before the human shuttle reached open space, every corner of the galaxy already had a different version of the story. In some versions, he was a monster. In others, he was a hero. In many, he was simply a question. No one knew how to answer. On a green world full of calm lakes, a small school gathered around a large screen. Young aliens watched the recording with wide eyes. One little student raised a hand and asked the teacher, if he is so strong, why did he not attack everyone? The teacher thought carefully, then smiled gently. Because strong does not always mean loud, she said. Because protection and destruction are not the same thing. Some of the children still looked afraid, but some looked amazed. On a distant warship, a captain closed the same video with a shaking hand. He ordered quietly, no one under my command will provoke humans, not in word, not in action. His crew obeyed without argument. But in other places, darker conversations were happening. In a secret bunker hidden under a frozen moon, a circle of leaders spoke in cold voices. Their faces were half in shadow. Maps of Earth and human colonies floated in the air above the table. They are a threat, one said. They are an opportunity, another argued. Imagine if we control them. "You do not control storms," a third replied. "You survive them." They all fell silent at that sentence. But power has a stubborn voice, and it whispered again, "Find their weakness." So they began to search. They listened to human music. They watched human history. They read human books and saw how humans told stories about themselves. What they found confused them even more. Humans cried at sad songs. They laughed in disaster. They risked their lives for strangers. They rebuilt after everything fell apart. Again and again and again. A report finally came back with a short answer. Humans break, but then they stand up again. That is the problem. They stand up again. Meanwhile, the human from the trial was still on his shuttle, moving through the quiet dark. He did not feel like a legend. He felt tired. He watched the stars and thought not about glory, but about something simple. Rain on roofs, streetlights at night, the sound of people talking and living on Earth. He also thought about the alien commander. He had not wanted to be anyone's fear. He had not wanted to be anyone's lesson. But the commander had crossed a line he could never uncross. The line was not about pride. It was about dignity. It was about someone deciding that chains and pain were the right way to speak. Humans did not like that language. A signal chimed. The shuttle had picked up a transmission. It was not from humans. It was from the old scholar in the Galactic Hall. The message was short. "I warned them. I am sorry." The human read it and smiled a small, tired smile. He answered with only 3 words. "Teach them better." The old scholar received that reply and sat back in his chair for a long time without moving. Those 3 words felt heavier than long speeches. He knew what they meant. The galaxy did not need to fear humans to survive. It needed to learn respect, real respect, not the kind born from chains and weapons. On Earth, preparations had already begun, not for war, but for contact. Human diplomats spoke to military leaders. Scientists spoke to philosophers. They all knew the same thing now. The galaxy had finally noticed them, and not in a small way. Some wanted to withdraw, hide, close the sky. Others said softly, "No, we will walk forward, but we will walk as equals." The human from the trial had a different meeting waiting for him, a simple one. He would land, sit down, and talk to children at a school, because children would inherit the stars next. He knew they would ask the hardest question. Why did you do it? And he already knew his answer. Because someone must draw lines the world cannot cross. The shuttle moved faster. The stars stretched into bright threads. A soft light filled the cabin. He felt calm again. Not the cold calm of danger. The warm calm of direction. Far away, in yet another hidden chamber, someone pressed a button and began designing weapons made for humans. Others built alliances against Earth. Fear, when it cannot understand, tries to control or destroy. But something else was also growing. Across the galaxy, small groups in many worlds said the same new sentence in many different languages. We should meet them, not as rulers, not as owners, but as friends. Part 5 did not end with a battle. It ended with a choice forming in the galaxy like a slow sunrise. They could build chains or they could build bridges. The human had already shown which one he would break. The stars were quiet, but the galaxy was not. Meetings filled with fear and meetings filled with hope were happening at the same time, often on the same worlds, sometimes in the same buildings. Doors closed, voices lowered, and choices slowly began to take shape. The human shuttle slipped out of faster-than-light travel and entered the soft blue light of Earth's system. The familiar sun glowed ahead. The sight always did the same thing to him. It softened his shoulders. It slowed his heartbeat. No matter how far he went, no matter what he faced, the star meant home. He watched the small blue planet grow larger. In the window, clouds swirled. Oceans shone. Storms moved like white giants across the surface. Anyone else might see danger. He saw life.control gave him landing clearance without questions. No ceremony, no parade. Humans were strange like that. They could shake the galaxy and still prefer to walk quietly through their own door. He landed at a modest spaceport on the edge of a city. No banners. Only wind and concrete and the distant sound of traffic. A small group waited for him, scientists, diplomats, a few soldiers, and an old teacher with kind eyes. They did not salute. They simply nodded, the way people do when words would only get in the way. He stepped down from the shuttle. The ground felt reassuring beneath his feet. He breathed Earth air, full of salt and dust and rain, and for a moment he just stood there, letting everything slow down. Then the questions began. Are we in danger? What will the council do? What did you see in that hall? He answered, each of them with patience. Not with long speeches, just clear, simple words. Yes, some fear us. Yes, some will try to use that fear. No, we will not bow. No, we will not become monsters. The old teacher watched him closely and then asked the question no one else dared to ask. And you? Are you all right? He paused and thought about the chains. He thought about the slap. He thought about the quiet 5 seconds afterward. Then he said, I am tired, but I am not broken. The teacher nodded. Then we are fine, he said softly, as if that answer mattered more than politics and fleets. While Earth talked, the rest of the galaxy did something new. It listened. On a world of tall crystal towers, a council announced, we will send messengers of peace to Earth. On another world of endless deserts, leaders said, we will open trade, but with respect. On yet another, fearful rulers whispered, prepare weapons just in case. The future was no longer one road. It was many roads, branching in all directions out in the galactic hall. The old scholar recorded his thoughts. He did not write about the human strength. He wrote about restraint, about calm, about the choice not to destroy when one could. He titled his work, 5 Seconds of Decision. He ended it with a sentence that would soon be quoted on worlds he would never see. Deathworlders are dangerous not because they cannot die, but because they choose when not to kill. The human did not know about that paper. He was walking through his city, blending into crowds, hearing the noise of daily life vendors calling out, children laughing, engines humming. It grounded him. It reminded him why lines mattered. He went to the school as planned. The children were waiting in a bright room full of drawings of rockets and planets. They were not afraid of him. Children rarely are. They see people before. They see legends. One small girl raised her hand and asked the same question he had expected. Why did you do it? The room went silent. He knelt so his eyes were level with hers. His voice was gentle. Because someone hit a person who could not fight back, he said. Because sometimes the world needs someone to say stop and mean it. Because being strong is not about showing power, it is about protecting what matters. The children thought about that. Some nodded slowly. Some looked at their hands. A boy whispered, will the galaxy hate us now? The humans smiled sadly. Some will, he said. Some will fear us. Some will want to hurt us. But some will want to know us. Our job is to stay human, even when others forget to stay themselves. Outside the school, rain began to fall. It tapped on windows and roofs, a soft sound that belongs only to living worlds. He listened and felt peace for the first time since the trial. But peace does not erase danger. In the shadows of distant space, fleets slowly gathered, not to attack yet, but to be ready. In other places, ambassadors wrote careful letters that began with Dear People of Earth. 2 tides were rising at once, one of fear, one of respect. Part 6 was not loud. It was quiet. Like the space between breaths. It was about a human walking among his own people, holding the weight of a galaxy's attention and still choosing to answer children, to stand in rain, to speak gently when he could have shouted. The galaxy would soon decide what it wanted to become. The human had already decided what he would remain. Night covered Earth like a soft blanket. City lights shone like small stars on the ground, while real stars watched from above. The human stood on a tall building roof, looking up into the sky. Somewhere out there, he knew, the galaxy was still talking about him. He did not feel like a legend. He felt like a man who had drawn a line and now had to live with it. A gentle wind moved his hair. Far below, cars moved, voices laughed, music played from open windows. Life continued. That was the most human thing of all. Life continued even. When the universe shook behind him, footsteps sounded. He did not turn. He already knew who it was. A diplomat from Earth stepped beside him. Her face was calm, serious, and kind at the same time. She watched the stars with him in silence for a long moment before she spoke. "They have sent messages," she said. "Many messages." He waited. "Some threaten," she continued. "Some promise friendship. Some simply ask, 'What are you?'" He smiled slightly. "And what did you answer?" "I told them the truth," she said, "that we are human. That we bleed, we laugh, we fail, we stand again. That we are not perfect and do not pretend to be. That we will not kneel. That we will not rule others by chains. That we remember every time someone tried to chain us." He nodded. That was enough. Far away, in countless worlds, the same conversation was happening in different languages. Should they fear Earth? Should they welcome it? Should they stay away? Should they test it? Some voices were loud, some quiet, some wise, some foolish. The galaxy was wide enough for all kinds, but in every debate, one memory stood in the center. 5 seconds. 5 seconds that changed how they saw a small blue world near an ordinary star dot in one distant council room. A leader who had once laughed at the idea of Deathworlders now spoke with great care. "We will not provoke them," he said, "not because they are monsters, but because they have shown they do not wish to be." He paused and added, "Strength that does not enjoy hurting others is rare. We should respect it." On another world, a different ruler clenched his fists. "No," he said. "We cannot allow such beings to rise, build fleets, build weapons. If we wait, we will bow forever." His people listened with fear in their hearts, not fear of humans, but fear of being left behind. The galaxy, like a coin, turned between two sides. Back on Earth, the human left the rooftop and walked into the sleeping city. Neon signs glowed. A small food stall stayed open on a quiet corner. He bought hot soup and sat on a bench, just another face in the night. The vendor, not recognizing him or pretending not to, only said, "Cold night." "Yes," the human replied, "but good." He ate slowly, feeling warmth return to him. It reminded him why he had stood in that hall without breaking. It reminded him that strength found meaning only when tied to simple things: home, laughter, rain, soup, small lights against the dark. A message beeped softly on his wrist device. It was from the old scholar. "We have begun teaching," the message said. "Not about your power, about your restraint." He closed his eyes for a moment, grateful. Then another message arrived right after the first. This one came from a human fleet commander in deep space. "We are ready," it said. Simply. 2 messages, 2 paths. Teaching and readiness. Bridges and shields, both were necessary. He sent 2 short replies. To the scholar, "Thank you." To the commander, "Use wisdom before strength." Clouds moved across the moon. Somewhere thunder rolled far away. The human finished his soup and stood. The night around him felt full of quiet possibilities. He knew something important. This was not the end of the story. This was the beginning of a larger one. Earth would walk among the stars, now not as a servant, not as a tyrant, but as itself. Some would welcome that. Some would fear it. Some would challenge it. and humans with their strange mix of kindness and steel would answer each in their own way. He looked up one last time. If they come in peace, he whispered, we will open our hands. If they come in chains, he added softly, we will break them. Not a threat, not a boast, a promise. Rain began to fall again, soft and steady, washing the city in silver lines. He walked into it without hurry, without umbrella, letting it soak him, feeling alive. Far beyond the clouds, the galaxy turned, and everywhere on ships, in halls, in homes, in quiet hearts, beings remembered the lesson of one calm human, one bright hall, and 5 silent seconds that taught them what humanity truly was. Not just a Deathworlder, a protector who had decided where the line would stand.